Hi guys, welcome back to Iron Griffin Studio. I've realised I need some dungeon doors because all of my dungeons at the moment are very open plan, which isn't ideal. So I figured I could make some sort of wall sections that would maybe sit on a 1x3 inch foam base, and there would be a door in the middle of those sections. I don't think I'm going to make the doors open because it just seems like twice as much work. But they should look good and they'll serve a purpose, and hopefully they'll be fairly quick and cheap to make and pretty easy to make. Really. Yeah. So hopefully we can knock this out. Yeah, let's get cracking. Right, so we're going to start with a piece of paper. This was just so I could get the right shape for the door. Basically, I just drew half a door on a folded sheet of paper, and then I cut that out, and then I unfolded it so we have a symmetrical shape, which is ideal for a dungeon door. The idea here is just to place it on a piece of graphics medium weight chipboard, which is just really a pretty beefy cardstock, and then draw around it with, I'm using a biro, you can pretty much use anything, but very carefully hold it in place and draw around it, and this will just give us a much sturdier template to use for any future projects that we use doors with, really. The idea is just, with it being a bit stronger, you can handle it a bit more without it being torn and damaged and folded and everything else. So just cut it out very carefully with some pretty strong scissors you probably need for this. And then once that's done, you have to mark it up and make sure that you use the same template every time. Don't use a template of a template, like a copy of a copy, because they'll end up being slightly different sizes eventually, and this way you can ensure that you use the same one over and over again. And so now we take a piece of 2 inch by 3 inch XPS foam, and this is going to be our wall section which will contain the door. All it needs really is just a door template cutting out the middle of it, leaving 1 inch either side because the door itself is 1 inch across, and then we can get to making and texturing the walls. Right, okay, so I'll just need to cut that out, but also I want to, it's my piece of balsa wood. It's I don't know how thick. I'm going to use 4mm balsa wood, and I think I can get 2 in. I want to use the grain, obviously. I don't want to go this way along because that would give me a weird looking door. So I guess I'll just draw around and use a ballpoint pen. And then just that. You know what, I'm going to need a few of these, so awesome. And by the magic of editing, poof, they're done. Alright, now we need to create some planks that this door is made of. So you've got to kind of etch them in with a pen or something like a pen. So if you draw a center line down the door and then just draw 3 planks either side of it, that doesn't need to be too neat, but 3 planks seems about right at this scale. Now that you've you've got that, you've got some wall sections here. You will notice I have put bricks into them using my brick method from my previous video. And these small pieces of XPS foam are going to be the base that the door sits on. These are 3 by 1 inch, as you can see. They butt up nicely against my other dungeon tiles. Get that out of the way, and then so all you need to do is, you know, typical dungeon tile technique, 1 inch squares, and then I'm just eyeballing this because my mat has half inch lines on it, so just score it with an X-Acto blade and then bevel that score mark with a tool of some description, mechanical pencil maybe, or I use a paintbrush handle that's been sharpened, and then just make sure that's nice and neat, and then we'll have to move on to the next stage, which is going to be texturing. Alright, it's texture time. It's the old aluminium ball. You can't really skip this step. This is really important, I think. We've got to get some texture on that stonework, because otherwise it just doesn't look like stone. So the usual method, start light, and then you can always go a bit heavier. Just rough up that surface and give it some character and some visual interest, I suppose. And then do the walls as well. And then we can move on to the next step. Okay, so balsa wood might not be the best idea. I was just trying to feed the door handle through the door, and it snapped in my fingers, so I don't know, I'll repair it. I have some no nails glue, I'm going to use that. Trying to get it too thick, but yeah, maybe foam would have been better. Live and learn. I've decided to try and do a foam door as well, just to see how it looks. I'm going to use the wire brush method to texture it, and I've done the planks already, so yeah. Try and do several light passes. Just like with the wood, you want to make sure that you go with the grain of the foam. A lot of people don't realise there's a grain, and you want to make sure you follow it as best you can. That should be okay. And here we are, we've got our pieces all come together. Wall sections, floor sections and doors. Looking pretty good. The doors, you will notice, have little handles on them. They're just made out of like a wire loop with a backing of styrene sheet or plasticard. This section of wall here has a small alcove which I cut into the back. And it was hard to get a nice finish, so I actually poured a tiny bit of very thin plaster of Paris into the gap to kind of strengthen it up a little bit, and also to sort of smooth that area out. Now you should be able to take these doors and very carefully, because that XPS foam with it being only a small section holding the sides together, it's quite weak. So yeah, that's basically how it's going to look. Do I put it in the middle of the tile or at the edge? Maybe the edge? No, probably the middle. I think the middle would be better. Okay, so I've stuck the doors into the gaps. They are not going to open, I've decided. I just used a good amount of tacky glue, which is available at most shops. And yeah, all good. Okay, and the next step is Mod Podge black paint undercoat. Just the usual kind, just to seal that foam in. And then we're going to get some paint on it. We're going to get some kind of browns and ivories and things, tans, vanilla colours, things that are maybe a little bit too light for rock colours, but it's okay. These will all be toned down a lot when the dry brush goes on, and then again when the wash goes on. So don't worry about this stage, just get on some slightly irregular colours in some sort of random patterns. Just pick a brick, paint it up, move on to another one, paint that up, and you'll probably get a kind of patchwork sort of pattern coming together, and it should look a little bit rubbish to begin with, but everything will all look alright in the end, I promise. And so while I put some paint on these bricks at 4 times the speed of a normal man, probably it's a good chance to tell you that anyone can support this channel just by subscribing or liking the video or leaving a comment or anything. I'm happy to hear everybody's thoughts and critique and ideas for any future builds if they feel like contributing that way. Yeah, feel free to just support the channel any which way you can. I'd be very happy with it, it'd be very much appreciated. So thank you. So there, as you can see, with all these kind of different patterns on it, looks a little bit random, it looks a little bit rubbish, but it'll look good after the dry brush and wash stage. And moving on to the bases for the doors. These are just the 3x1 inch sections, all undercoated with Mod Podge and black paint. And now we're just going to dry brush them pretty heavily with some kind of medium grey colour. Really, you want to just do these the way that you would have done your original dungeon tiles, if you have any already. You want them to match, so this is kind of the most important part of this whole painting process, I think. So make sure they match. Give it a good heavy dry brush. This will all be darkened down quite a lot anyway during the washing phase, but you can't go wrong with a good heavy dry brush. Really pick out all that detail that you've done with the aluminium ball, any cracks that you've put in the stones and things, and then eventually you're going to move on to a little bit of brown. We're going to put some brown in the rock, because rock is very rarely kind of a boring grey. And really you just want to mark the stonework with some nice kind of I think what I'm using here is a burnt umber, and there's maybe a little bit of tan involved, a little bit of a much darker brown here, I think, just to make it just to break up that grey. It gets a bit boring, I think, with a lot of grey, and it'll really help set off the stonework towards the end. Now with these wall door sections, you just want to give them a really good heavy dry brush again with the same grey that you used on the floor. Cover both sides, all the brickwork, all the browns that you put in there. They really want to get dulled down by this grey, and so that they tie more closely together, ready for the washing stage. Really, you'll notice that you're picking out a lot of the detail, but also really subduing those cartoonish patchwork patterns that you made before. But this all helps when it comes to the finished product. Alright, so that stonework's all dry brushed, and it's worth noting that the left hand door and the right hand door are pretty much the same colour paint wise. I think it was a game colour earth or something, and then but the middle door is a Bestigor flesh by Citadel. I thought it might go on a little bit maybe thinner, but it didn't. It covered really well, which is, I suppose, good, but it's really light. I might have to see if I can darken it down with some washes at a later stage, because I'm not overly happy with it. But the foam door is on the left, and I think it looks a little bit better, to be honest. Might have to do that one in the future. Alright, here we are at the washing stage. Probably my favourite part of model making, really. I think it just brings everything together. It really kind of seals the whole project, and it ties in all the stonework in this case and the doors, and really ties in all the colours that you've put into the brickwork really well. I think all those tans and vanillas and browns that you used early on have been really toned down now, and they've been really blended nicely into the stonework. Feel free to use the same wash on the doors as well. A little bit overboard there, but it's okay. And work it all into the areas, all the little cracks and crevices, and make sure you use a kind of a stippling motion that I'm using here. You don't want to kind of brush it on. You want to make sure that the paint really gets in the crevices, and this method helps a lot. But also, you don't want to reactivate the paint underneath, and by stippling there's less chance of it being reactivated. If you reactivate the paint, you're going to get a cloudy finish to your wash. Alright, so before we go on to the hinges and the door handles, you can see the door on the right there actually came out pretty good after the wash. It's a bit of a lighter colour than the other one, but I don't mind that. Different woods have different tones, I'm fine with it. So, using a Baden Black from Citadel Miniatures, we're going to paint these hinges and the door handles. They're just going to be pretty basic. I think most medieval style ironwork was just wrought iron, which is always pretty much black. I think this appears to be the best technique for painting door hinges and door handles. I think using a metallic colour doesn't really quite look right to me, so I'm opting for black. Of course you can use whichever colour you want, but this is my method. The hinges here in question are kind of they're just made out of cardstock, actually. I used my printer here at home to print off some hinge looking things, and then I cut them out using an X-Acto knife very, very carefully, and then I just stuck them on with PVA glue, and I think they look pretty good. Quite flat against the door, they don't stick out too far to look silly or anything, so yeah, I'm happy. And there we have it. The individual components are just about complete. I just wanted to stick them down with a bit of hot glue, just because it dries really fast and I didn't want to wait for tacky glue to do the same thing. So I'm just sticking them down to the middle of their base and they'll stand up very nicely. I think you'll also notice that there's a few extra details there. I've put a small candle in the alcove on the right hand wall section there, and a small shield above the door frame as well, which I think I might put maybe a small decal on, or a transfer. Yeah, so there they all are. Basically they all work as intended and they all look pretty good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with them. I added a little bit of moss towards the end. If you can see it, what are we doing? There we go. We got it. Yeah, just make them look a little bit older, more authentic, I suppose. I think I'll make a few more doors in the future. Maybe not standard wooden doors. Maybe like an iron door or a puzzle door or a portcullis or something. That could be cool. Let me know if you get any ideas. Feel free to like and subscribe and comment and all that stuff. Yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this video useful in some way, informative, or just fun. And yeah, I'll see you again next time. Happy crafting.